When you meet somebody who's brought up differently than you are, bits rub off of you onto them and them to you. So Brent was a very traditional Irish country Catholic boy, said the rosary, did all the prayers and all the bits that go with it. And we were different. We were brought up to be, I think, possibly more liberal, because my father's father was from Cullybackey. He was called Robert Colville Nicholl. And he came up to Belfast, went into Diggs. He was a Protestant from there and went into Diggs and then fell in love with my granny and then turned to be a Catholic, as you had to in those days to get married in the Catholic Church. So then my mother's mother, Jane Harrison, was from Newcastle on Tyne. And again, she was Protestant. And so there would have been like a quarter of the blood in me would be of mixed blood, which is more of a liberal feeling towards the Troubles. And when they were on, we were never put into any category. We were never unionist or nationalist or didn't like the term Catholic or Protestant, because everybody is mixed. And it was a lovely upbringing that I had. And I hope then I was able to pass that on to my children, to not be biased against other people of other religions. Well, I've told you how proud I am of all my children and how different they are and the talents they have. But each of them individually have partners, husbands and wives, who have brought me an amazing amount of joy. The first one into the family was Kieran. Brilliant fella, technophile, able to help me with all my computer problems. He's on the phone at all stages and helping. And quiet fella who was able to be a great partner for Suzanne. They make a great couple. They have a lovely quiet house. The children get on with their work. There's never any fighting that I have heard and rows. And it's a lovely, gentle atmosphere, their house. Don't fuss about too much and get on with things. And Kieran's a great fella. And then the next to get married was Cormac. And after Cormac having a blip with his first marriage, he met this great girl, Claire, and he rang me a week after he met her and said, "Mummy, I've met a girl that's like you." And I thought, wow, what does that mean? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? So Claire came over to visit us, and Brendan fell in love with Claire the minute he saw her. And she was full of life and interested in things and great at music and very talented. And the next to get married was Gavin. And Gavin came over with Zati, and we met her a couple of times. She came over here, and Zati was so pretty and so efficient at everything she did. And went down in Cushendall, I remember going up to the bathroom and saying, "Oh my goodness, look at the sparkling clean bathroom. I couldn't get over it." And she was charming, and her English was fantastic. And she was very interested in learning new words. And she would nearly get a wee book out and learn a new word every day from us. Now, she had to learn a lot of slang, which must have been very difficult for her. And she was lovely, great partner for Gavin. And they got married over in Borneo. Louise and Ken and Mark went over to the wedding. Brenton wasn't fit to go, nor was, I didn't go because of Brenton not being well. And they had a wonderful wedding and great pals over there. And then Max came along, so that was a joy as well. And after that, while Max was being born, Louise got married to Ken. And she'd met him in Edinburgh through Lucy Rainey. And I was invited over to Edinburgh to meet him. And along came this huge man. Like, I couldn't believe how tall he was. She'd told me he was tall, but he was very proud of his height. And he has turned out to be a helper and a strong man. He was here every time Brendan fell, helped to pick him up off the floor. He was even here the day that Brendan had his bleed and fell down. He came over to the hospital with us, and able to get in touch with Ambrose because he was able to work the computer and get Ambrose over. And they have 2 children, and they are a joy for me. And so Mark is single. And if there's any girl out there that would like a wonderful gentleman farmer with plenty of money, fit as a fiddle, and lovable, get in touch with Mark Macaulay, aged 42.
Do you want to summarize what it means for you to have children who have partners that you appreciate?
Not only do I love them all, but I appreciate what they have done and the roundedness that they've given to my children. So when you meet somebody, a bit of you rubs off on them. Certainly when you marry somebody, a bit of you not only rubs off on them, but you get a balance in your life, because you think, right enough, they're completely different from me. So that has balanced all my children. I think it has rounded them all up into more wonderful people than they were before I handed them over to their partners. And I thank them all very much and love them all. My mother was at school in Carrickmacross. She was sent there because she was good at music, and they followed that up. She came home from school, went to St. Dominic's for a while, and then after school, her father thought it would be a good idea to send her to Italy, where he knew Italian people whose family she could live with. So she went to Milan and stayed with a family there, Mincorelli, I think they may have been called, and learned Italian and learned singing, but became an opera singer. Her father didn't want her to be an opera singer. He thought she might be a pop singer.
What sort of pop singer?
Well, popular music. He thought she might be interested in modern music, but she went the opera style, and she was a contralto, and she sang beautifully. And she went to a dance one night before she went there. She wanted to check out, how would you say that she was busy, that she didn't want to dance. So they taught her, io sono impegnata. So she went there and said, io sono impregnata. And they all roared and laughed, because that meant she was saying she was pregnant. She also met a Sicilian soldier on a train, and she decided she was going to marry him, wrote to her father to tell him, and he wrote back a telegram saying, it's your own funeral. So she thought about that and thought, well, maybe not. So she came home and then started to go out with Daddy, who she'd known long before. When she came home, then she joined an operatic group here, and she sang in St. Mary's Hall, and she sang Iolanthe and Madame Butterfly, and my father went to all the concerts in St. Mary's Hall. And one of the songs that she had to sing, probably in the chorus, was Wrap Me Up in a Buttercup. And my father roared and laughed at the size of my mother being wrapped up in a buttercup. And the joy that singing gave her was great, because she used to sing at people's houses. And one night, Daddy put the music into his coat pocket, and off they went to a party. And the party was over. They were on the way home, and lo and behold, the music fell out of his pocket, and the people were very embarrassed. They said, oh, Winnie, we forgot to ask you to sing. And then Peter, my brother, he used to get cushions and stuff them up his jumper and put his hands over his breast and sing, Mo Hills of Donegal. And everybody roared and laughed. And she sang all those lovely Irish songs, and she made a record. And it was Jimmy Logan, the Scottish comedian, who played the piano for her in that record. And it is in this house somewhere. If you come across it, please don't crack it up or break it, because I did put it onto a tape one time in the days when you were able to tape things. Gave one to Peter and Marie, but I don't think they ever looked after them. So she also was very good doing charity work and singing. And she sang in the Crumlin Road jail every Christmas morning at the Mass in the jail, which was like lovely of her to do that. I don't know whether the prisoners appreciated operatic singing or not, but that's what she did.
I'm sure they did. It would have been like a Shawshank Redemption moment
I don't.
of beauty in the harshness of prison life.
Her singing was lovely. She was a contralto or alto, as they call it now. And her diction was very good. She was very keen on every syllable being, announced, and whatever the word is, that's not right. But anyway, her diction was good.
And Marie was a bit of a singer as well.
And Marie sang, yes, she sang in some shows with my mother, and then May Maron and my drama teacher had both of them in a play where that demanded singing. And Marie was in that. But then Marie smoked too much, my mother smoked too much, and they both lost their voices. But Marie used to sing, she sang for her GCSE French oral. She sang a French song. And the nuns were horrified. They said that was a dirty song.
Yeah.
Can't remember the word song, but it was a beautiful song. But she didn't know what really the words meant, but it was something about love or making love or something. I wish I could remember the name of the song.
You were always a fine singer too, but your experience of the stage was more on the drama side of things. Tell us about your life in drama.
From I was about 4, I was with May Maron and doing my drama and speech lessons, and we did ballet dancing with her as well, and she was very keen on poise, and you learned all the theory about breathing and everything. So as I got older, I came back from Coleraine, went to Fort William. Then after in college, I was in Cyrano de Bergerac. I was Roxanne. And then when I left, all through college, I was still I became a member of the Christian Brothers drama group. But mostly they did plays for men, but had lots of parts in those. Dial M for Murder, where Pat Catney had to kill me over the bed. And I was pregnant. And I was saying, Pat, don't lean on me too heavily. Pat, be careful of me. And I was whispering to him that I was pregnant in the rehearsals. And then the rest of the people found out about that. That must have been Louise. And we then started our own drama group after many successes in the Christian Brothers, huge talented people. We went to the group theatre with plays there too, and I produced one that I won a cup for. And we did Sing and Shaw and those various writers, Irish writers. And then, because there were mostly parts for men in those days, very good parts for lady women. So Maury McDermott and I started the Shaftesbury Players. So we used to do plays by, what did you call her? Mary Jones, and various other comedies. Padraig Pearse Motel, another play with Catherine Hassan played my daughter in it. And I played the part that Dolly Parton played. What was that called?
Do not know.
A hairdresser's. Anyway, that was very funny because I was a Dolly Parton hairdresser. So I had to stuff my bra with socks. And one day I hadn't enough socks and I had to borrow them from Mickey Lowe. And when I gave him back to him at the end of the night, he says, I'll never wash those socks again. And sometimes I was like a tarty player, and my sons used to come to see the plays, and my daughters. And apparently my sons were very embarrassed because of the mother coming on stage with a nightdress and a negligee on her, or a short skirt, or a tarty looking part. But there were always the fun parts that I played. And then later on, I started to produce plays, and we got quite a few people in for those. And I've got a few things around the house, like Christmas Eve Can Kill You plate that you may had great fun with one time. And that went on until about, I would say, 7-8 years ago. And we got fed up because...
Do you want to just include that anecdote that you referenced?
Yes, I will, certainly. You came home from Borneo. Your father died on the 22nd of December, and you knew from the 20th of December that he was going to die. So you managed to get your flight home in time. So you arrived back on, I assume, the 23rd of December. And there was lots of people in the house at the wake, and they were all in drinking and talking and laughing in the drawing room. And Louise came to me and she said, "Mummy, will you stop talking to people? Gavin has just come through the door and you haven't spoken to him. And he wants to get you on your own." So the three of us went into the dining room where Brenton was laid out on the dining room table. And the three of us went into the room and closed the door. And we were very reverent and crying and but not much talk. And the next thing you said, "Well, you'll have to move that plate." And I said, "What plate? What are you talking about?" We looked over and the plate said, "Christmas Eve can kill you." And the roars and laughs of the three of us. And I thought, the people outside will think, what the heck are they all laughing about? And their father still in the coffin in there. So that was a light moment in all the times.
It was very funny. We all laughed a lot. But no better time for a laugh than in the depths of despair.
Yeah, there's always fun to be had in every situation.
So we were always very proud of your acting career. But then there was a famous incident occurred where you were interviewed on the radio for a show which was about life beginning at 40. And the interviewer said, "So, Noelle, tell us about yourself. I believe you're very interested in the theatre." And you replied,
"Theatre is my life."
Which took us to the fair because, mother of 5 children, incredibly energetic, running us about left, right and centre, every extracurricular activity under the sun.
Yeah.
There's no time for anything else. How could anything else be your life apart from the 5 of us?
Well, what I meant was it was my relief. It was my release button.
Absolutely.
And Louise was only months old at that stage. And it was Mary Johnson had seen me going up and down the road pushing a pram. And she was very impressed that I was 40 and pushing a pram. And I knew Mary Johnson pretty well. She was one of the Eastwoods. And she interviewed us. And Frank Hanna was the other person being interviewed at that time. But Frank would have been 42 maybe. So it was a simple interview. Just how do you feel at 40? And I said, I feel no different than I felt at 19.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know you weren't happy with us laughing about that, but it wasn't meant as an insult. It was just amusing to us that, this tireless mother could mention that something else was her life. But we always enjoyed going to watch your plays.
I thought you were ashamed of me coming out when night dress is on.
Well, it's a bit awkward when you're a spotty 14-year-old teenager.
Yes, of course.
Because everything's a bit awkward then.
Yes, and you're always ashamed of your parents anyway, because they know nothing and you know everything.
But your talent was always recognised and admired.
Thank you. I don't know whether it was that good or not, but I enjoyed it. And if it brought bums on seats and made a bit of money for our group, and then we gave lots of money to charity. And then when we wound it all up, Maureen McDermott gave the last of the money to the hospice, I think.